Hi everyone, welcome back to the Lost and Found. I am here with Molly Rubesh today, so we have a wonderful guest lineup for you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her and then we'll jump right in. She is a trauma-informed coach, a Reiki practitioner, a writer, and a mother who helps women move through grief, major life transitions, and any identity shifts with compassion and courage. After navigating her own seasons of loss and blended family dynamics and divorce, Molly felt called to create a safe space for others who could reclaim their power, reconnect with their inner child, and step into a more soul-aligned life. So her approach is both practical, deeply spiritual, and grounded, using talk therapy, energy work, and self-compassion practices. She's a storyteller at heart. She has written a children's book about grief and resilience and healing, and she reminds her clients and her community members every day that your story is not just a detour, it's the path that will guide you home. So everybody, please welcome Molly Rubesh to today's episode.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's so wonderful to have you here. And how was your drive? I know you're not from Nashville. You came in from Louisville, that's correct?
Yep. Nice and easy. 3 hours straight shot.
Good. Oh my gosh, because I am born and raised here, and I did live here for a few years before I had to move back. And like even coming in today, I was kind of like, I underestimated this. The Nashville traffic, I feel like you know it, and then sometimes it throws you for a loop. So I'm glad you made it safely. So that's very important. You know, as I mentioned kind of in your intro, you've had a very interesting journey from a successful career in corporate, and then now you've shifted into, you know, becoming a trauma-informed coach. And that's a very brave thing to do, to change and to pivot later in life. And I was hoping you could maybe walk us through some of that transition process and kind of what sparked your need to search for a different centered path.
Yeah, it really came from my own healing journey. I was going through a divorce in 2017. I was knee deep in corporate America, a corporate leader. I was flying all over the place and planes at midnight, and life was stressful. It was really hard, and I knew that I needed to make a change. So I got divorced in 2017. I ended up falling in love, getting remarried. And then my dad died in 2022. And during that time, he was in hospice and he was really sick. So I took a leave of absence to be with him. And when I was watching him die, I'm like, I have got to do something different with my life. Like, I cannot go back to corporate. And I wasn't quite sure what it was going to be. And I talked to my husband and I said, I'm not going back to work, as long as I have your support. And fortunately, I did. Not everybody has that option. Right. And that summer, I decided to write a children's book about grief. And then I got certified to be a coach. And it just like things kept moving and kind of evolving, which have brought me full circle. So I've taken the pain and the experiences of my own life along with my certifications and my training and my own healing journey to kind of build this new support system and coaching business that I thrive in now.
Yeah, it sounds like you're aligning very much with your purpose now to give back to other people and to share your own story. How did you know to trust yourself to make that change? Like, was it just truly being so overwhelmed by all the emotions for things that have been going on? Or had you known maybe for a while, were there signs that you were like, you know what, this is kind of it now. I'm ready. I should do this.
I think it's years of not listening to myself, which got me to a really high stress job in a stressful marriage with 2 young kids. And I felt myself frantic, my body, my anxiety, my nervous system. I was not even a person that I liked, and I knew I wasn't myself. And so as I continued to like peel back and making these big decisions, even though they're hard, they help you live more authentically and then find more joy. And then I'd make another hard decision, which then led to more joy. Trusting yourself is really scary in the beginning, but the more you lean into it and the more you have the proof then that this is right and this is right for me. I was able to see both sides, what it feels like to live in alignment and then what it feels like to not live in alignment.
Yeah, I feel like we were talking a little bit before we started recording that it's almost visceral, right? When you're feeling, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing right now, but it's just not clicking. Like I'm doing what's been asked or what's been told for me to do, and I'm meeting those expectations, but there's nothing left after that feeling. It's kind of like you do all the things, right? You go to college, you get the degree, you get the first job. I'm not married, but you get married, you have the kids, you buy the car, you do the house, you get all the stuff, and then you're kind of like, what in the world am I doing?
Right.
Like this should have been
it
it.
perfectly.
This should have been it, right? And that's a lot of the conversations that we have on this show is like your 20s are great for making all the mistakes and figuring things out and putting pieces together. But it's been terrifying for me to kind of have that wake up moment in my 30s instead, because I thought I was doing everything exactly the way I was supposed to and what was supposed to fit for me. And then transitioning out at like 31 was a difficult decision. It felt, I didn't realize way back in the day, I didn't realize that you could grieve an old version of yourself, really. I always thought you grieve a relationship, you grieve a person that died, you grieve your dog passing, like very, I guess, maybe surface level stuff.
Yeah.
So like, I didn't realize there was so much more depth to a grief moment. I've realized now too, like the expectations you have on your friends, or if you saw someone that lost someone and they're still talking about it years later, or they're still bringing it up or having those emotions, it makes so much more sense to me now why people go through those kinds of phases, because it's, you carry it with you for the rest of your life. It's just how you choose to look at it, I guess, or perceive it too.
And it's one of those things that you're told that happiness is right around the corner. Like after you graduate college and you land that job, or after you get that apartment or buy that house or get married or have kids.
Yeah.
And I think as a society, we all have that. We will be happy when. And then when we arrive at that next step, we go, oh my gosh, I'm still just me.
Yeah.
And I didn't change, and I'm chasing the next thing. So we do have to do a better job of giving our friends and our family and ourselves permission to pivot.
Yeah.
To not have to follow the traditional path, to not have to check all of the boxes, because that isn't where happiness lies. It's not, happiness isn't at a destinational point.
Right. Yeah. You've said, it's not a destination, it's a practice. So I'm wondering maybe what does, in your daily life now, you know, you're a mom, you're a coach, you're a creator, you're a writer, you're doing a lot of stuff. So what does happiness look like for you in your daily life now? And how do you stay grounded and not get exhausted by all these things that are going on all the time?
It really is staying in alignment for what makes me happy or brings me joy. I mean, happiness is kind of a temporary, fleeting feeling. So I have really strict boundaries with where and who I spend my time with. I love working out. I sleep. I love my sleep. So I'm very strict on my bedtime routine. I have a really nice, beautiful morning routine. And then life happens during the day. So I'm a mom and I have all of the tasks that I do from a work perspective. But to stay grounded, it's really important to check in with yourself and then honor your own needs and not let the pressures of life, pressures of job or your family overtake. Because I think a lot of us are people pleasers too. And it's like, how do I do more for everybody in hopes that brings me
if
joy?
everybody else is happy, then I can finally be happy because everybody's fine. It's kind of like I'm sure you've dealt with that with a lot of your clients, or at least with women. It happens a lot. We're told subliminally or directly, you are supposed to take care of everybody else and do all these things for everyone else. And then what time does that leave for you? And that can be really tough. Do you think that type of practice and that alignment has gotten better in this marriage versus the first? Or were you not practicing those things in the previous one? How did you kind of differ between the two now?
Yeah, in my first marriage, I just didn't know that I was able to have more boundaries. I was the product of being brought up in the Midwest under a very traditional family with Catholic values, and it just was the next step. I was going to get married. I was going to have this successful career. I was going to have my babies. And it slowly like creeps in where you have way too much responsibility, way too much pressure to keep it all together. So I kept it all together on the outside, but I was really, really struggling on the inside. And I found myself just daydreaming about any option to get out of the marriage because it was so hard. But I didn't want to have to take off my ring. I didn't want to have to announce to the world that I was a divorced woman. I didn't want to admit failure because, my gosh, the shame around being a divorced woman and what will people think, and being a single mom and tell the church and the schools. So all of that kept me in the marriage far longer than I needed to be.
Yeah.
And it was it was like the own box that I created for myself.
But yeah, I've seen that a lot of therapists have talked about. You create your own cage in your mind.
Yeah.
the expectations you set on yourself, the limitations that you allow the limitations of other people if they give them to you, or self-imposed ones. And it's very difficult. And I know I felt a lot of shame when I first left my previous job, and I really worried about I'm going to become such a disappointment, which is my own thing I have to work through, about being worried that anybody would be disappointed anyway. And even if they are, that's not really my job to fix that for them if that's how they perceive what's going on in my life. It really only matters, am I disappointed in myself? And I think I would have been more disappointed by not leaving or not making the change when I knew that I needed to make it. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's a really real thing to say. And I'm sure your clients feel better when they feel like they can connect with you through that, because you felt that way too. You're not just guiding them through something that you've never traversed yourself.
Right.
So I'd love it if you could maybe tell us a little bit more about your current work as a life coach and the therapies that you kind of offer for people while they're going through all these major relationship difficulties.
Yeah. Honestly, I have gone through so much therapy and coaching myself, along with my certification and along with like the additional modalities, that it's this hybrid approach based on what the client needs. Some people are so early in their healing journey that they aren't ready or capable of going really deep.
Sure.
You just kind of talk about the surface stuff and get there.
Yeah.
Over time, really start like when there's trust and there's bonding, and then they start opening up to me. But mostly I help them just understand how we are contributing to our own suffering. So much of what we do is almost even exactly what you just said, where I'm going to be a disappointment to others. Did anybody tell you that?
Right. Why did I infer that?
Right.
Where is that coming from?
Yes, we kind of make these assumptions because of the way we were brought up, because of our inner child, because of our inner dialogue. And so it's having these raw conversations. I just was working with somebody earlier today that I'm like, but what do you want? And she's like, nobody's ever asked me that.
Oh,
and so she's so much in her head versus like that deep intuition knowing. And those feel very different.
Yes.
The intuition is like more of a fact statement. I do not love him anymore. The head is more of a, oh my gosh, but I got to stay because what if I do this? And what about the kids? And what about the money? And like, that's more of your head versus your intuition. And so I really help people get familiar with their deeper knowing, and then just give them the permission to live the life that they really want to.
Right. Yeah. You build that, safe space. What are some of the tips that you would have for anybody listening if they wanted to connect better to their intuition, or they wanted to start practicing listening to it? Are there any particular tips or tricks that you would have, or directives that they could do at home?
Yeah. You have to get quiet. So whether you're driving in silence, meditating in silence, we're constantly scrolling, or I'm guilty of it, listening to a podcast.
Yes, all the time.
Listening to music. You can't fully hear yourself until you like sit in silence. So make time for that meditation, make time for that quiet walk in nature, or journaling. Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, writes, she has a big platform that talks about letters of love, and you can open your journal prompt with, dear love, what is it that you want me to know? And it just comes from that really pure, authentic, loving space.
Yeah.
So I find a lot of success with that with my clients. And so it's just like actually hearing it, like actually giving yourself permission to quiet the surroundings and get more clear on your deep knowing.
When was the last time you heard from your intuition, and what was it telling you?
Oh, unfortunately, I hear from my intuition a lot.
Yeah.
I have a lot of pivot moments because especially with like growing my business, I'm so, there's the algorithm on social media and the funnels and what you need to do to grow. And there's so much noise, but I have this deep frustration with it. And so I have to I play this, go out there, put myself out there, come back, push myself out there, come back. So when I sit with my deep knowing, I know that authenticity is very important to me. And connection is really important to me. So if those two things aren't on the forefront, I just can't participate. It just,
the rest of it wouldn't.
It wears me out.
Oh, and you only have a finite amount of time, right? Like you can't sit behind your computer screen and focus on your social media strategy all day long. It either works or it doesn't, but it'll work the best when you can be exactly yourself. So that makes sense for sure. Tell me a little bit more about the marriage blueprint, and how does that coaching process work? Is it a package? What do people do if they want to sign up or work with you through that?
So I developed a course called the Modern Marriage Blueprint, and it really was birthed out of like 3 different pillars. One, my own divorce. Like, I want to go back and grab my 24-year-old self and like say, Molly, yeah, hello. And then I've ended up coaching so many people, mostly women, but sometimes men, that are like, how did I get here? How in the world did I get to this point in my marriage that I'm going through one of the most stressful events of life?
Sure.
And then I also have teenagers who freely say things like, we're getting married and I love them, and like love letters and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, how can we do marriage better? I wrote a course, and it's a 6-module course. It's self-led. So you just download it, buy it. It has a workbook and 6 different videos. And basically it just takes couples through topics that help prepare them for marriage. So it's like our first families, who are we? And where did we come from? What did we learn? And then it's conflict, intimacy, money, which is a big point.
All the major conversations you should have before you start marriage. Yeah.
And then our life together. And then ultimately normalizing a prenuptial agreement.
Oh, yeah. No, totally. I've thought about that actually a lot. Again, not married, but you used to be told, or at least Hollywood or TV always wants to tell you a prenup is only for the rich and only because they want to screw one person out of the money or the other. And there's so much, they're state by state based, so it can change based on where you live. But also it's for when things go wrong in other ways. Like if you had issues with children that aren't involved with divorce, who takes care of what bills, who's covered on what. If you have multiple houses, who's on which house? So that way, if one of them goes down, everybody can live in the other one, but we don't lose all of our stuff. Like if you get sick or you get addicted or you gamble away all of our money, who's liable for that? You can kind of like life plan certain scenarios. So that way, theoretically, hopefully the worst of the worst never does happen. But like you guys have a plan in place that you've already agreed on where you're like, we're a team. This is what we're going to do. It's a playbook for your marriage, just like a football team would have a playbook for what to do against certain other games and stuff. So
well said. And marriage is the biggest contract of your life.
Yeah.
It doesn't just bind you emotionally, it binds you legally and financially.
It's not just a piece of paper.
Yeah. And unfortunately, love alone isn't enough. Nobody enters into marriage thinking they're going to be the one that gets divorced. So why not have the tough conversations? The Modern Marriage Blueprint is designed to just help you have tough conversations, and not in a cheesy, hard way, just in an easy. It wouldn't take you very long. You could do it in a weekend. And then normalizing prenuptial agreements, like you said, just to empower us so we know exactly what we're signing up for.
When you got married the second time, did you do the steps that are in the book, or did you miss some, or how did that go when you started your second marriage? Like what conversations were you having the second time around?
The second time around, it's both our second marriage.
Okay.
And we both had challenges and had to heal significantly from them. So we had a lot of hard conversations in the beginning, and it was kind of like this, we're either going to dive in and really make it, or we're not going to do this.
Sure.
Because nobody wants to go through
not
that
a divorce
hardship
twice.
So I'm confident that we are better partners because we do the work and that we have such an open line of communication, but also because we know what marriage looks like, and we recognize that each other aren't there to just totally fulfill everybody's hopes and dreams. We honor each other in their sovereignty and in their humanness, and we can say, like, you hurt me. We have some of the tools. So some of the stories in the Modern Marriage Blueprint are from my marriages, my first and second marriage, about how we handle conflict and or what happens when you don't address some of these issues.
Yeah. What are, maybe for some people, if they are having a tough time right now in their relationship, since you've got 2 major relationships that you can pull from, what are some maybe warning signs or maybe red flags that you guys might be going through a rough patch and you should address it sooner rather than later to try and avoid? I know that's probably a really big question, like how to avoid divorce, but like you've seen warning signs in your past. You have hindsight, and you're in a marriage now that you can notice when things are going off, and you're like, let me tag him in and be like, hey, let's talk about it.
The resentment bank, when you find yourself getting resentful over something silly, it's something like he or she didn't unload the dishwasher, or he or she did not say thank you for dinner. And it's like these little things that then we put it in there, we put it in there, we put it in there. And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then that comes off in like snarkiness or like sassy or being short. And then we create a story around it.
Oh, yeah. You
Oh,
fill in the blanks for yourself.
yes. And so I love Brene Brown's The Story I'm Telling Myself is when you came home, you hated my dinner, and therefore you're not going to help me unload the dishwasher, so you don't appreciate me, and we've taken this entire thing entirely too far. And so the resentment bank, if your resentment bank is overflowing and you find yourself like not able to even want to like look at them, hold hands with them, sit by them, that's a warning sign that a conversation needs to be had. A loving conversation needs to be brought to their attention. And if somebody brings that to your attention, let's not add to the resentment bank by being defensive. Marriage takes work, and it takes a lot of healing and understanding not only how somebody else has hurt us, but also how we've then like made this big story around it. So just like keep that resentment bank pretty clear.
Yeah.
And try to not put too many deposits in there.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've read a lot of psychological studies and things like that on which relationships last the longest or how to track that or happiness in a marriage. And one of the things that comes up a lot when I've been doing other research for the podcast is that if contempt is present in the relationship, how they measure facial structures and responses to questions during the studies. But if contempt is present, it's like overwhelmingly positive that that relationship will be over within the next X amount of time, whatever it is that they're studying. And that once that is present, it is extremely difficult to remove it. And you can slip down that way, you know, slowly chipping away at each other with tiny things like that, like with the resentment stuff too. We did mention a little bit about you have blended families. You both have children from your first marriages. How has blending families gone for you guys? And what's maybe the greatest lesson that you've learned through that process about trying to heal two family systems? Because you're right, you're now working on, I guess, your third family. Because your originals, as you and your husband, your first ones, and now your third one together. So you've been healing over and over again. So what's maybe some of the biggest lessons you've learned from trying to blend families?
Blended families are not insta families. Like just because you and your partner have fallen in love does not mean that now the kids love each other, that the kids love the step parent, that the grandparents love the new spouse and those grandkids. And there's so much pressure to like make everybody happy. Like, I just want everybody to be happy. When we give ourselves permission, like when my husband and I have said, you're going to love your own kids differently than you love my kids. And it's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. Happened. Yeah, they're our biological children that we have had since birth. It doesn't just happen overnight. When we've given the kids permission they don't have to love their stepdad the same way that they love their biological dad, or my stepsons don't have to love me the same or choose. Nobody ever has to choose. You can like both. You can want to be here and miss dad or miss mommy. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
It softens the pressure around it, and it recognizes that just because my husband and I fell deeply in love doesn't mean that everybody is going to be on board overnight, and that it just takes lots of time, lots of patience, and a whole lot of grace.
Oh my gosh, all the grace. And you're already trying to give yourself grace for leaving a previous relationship and starting a new one. Did you ever have any guilt or struggle with certain emotions when you did fall in love a second time? Like, did you feel bad or have any concerns over like, oh, is it really okay for me to move on now? Like, I should really be focusing on my kids. I know I have an older sister and she has 2 children. And when she got divorced, she kind of like cut off other relationships. I know she's tried dating every now and then, but like really she's just like, you know what? I want to focus on my kids. They're young. They need to be taken care of. I'm not going to do that. So she kind of put her own relationships on the back burner. And so I was curious if you ever felt like, is it really okay for me to move on now? Is it really my turn? Like anything like that ever? Do you have any advice for somebody that might be feeling that way?
I think everybody gets to do it on their own timeline with their own healing journey. You know, I would highly suggest to not start dating until you have healed your heart and healed your anger and your resentment towards your ex. Because if you're holding on to that, we're just like muddying the water. Once you have kind of healed, if it feels right, love is such an amazing part of this human experience. If you get to have love and have partnership and have somebody that you want to share your life with, what a blessing. But it's not something that we need to go after to fix the hole that the first relationship left.
Absolutely.
So it's individualized based on your own desire.
Yeah. So how did you know that your second marriage or the your partner now, how did you know he was the right one for you?
Well, I said really early on, I said we're either in like a trauma bond
Right.
because life has been so hard for us that we're excited, or we're soulmates and there's like nowhere in between. We're either going to churn and burn
Yeah.
like really quick, or we're destined to be together. And so we just were very, very open. I continued my own healing journey, worked with my therapist a lot to make sure that I was ready. And of course, relationships are scary, even when you think it's right. You know, there's no like, oh my gosh, if you do this, Molly, nothing will ever go wrong. But we made the commitment to one another. I was ready to get married, and we prioritize one another, and we're very thankful that, you know, because second marriages actually fail at a higher rate than first marriages.
Really? I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's like 50 to 60% of second marriages
Even
end in
higher.
divorce,
Oh my
and even
gosh.
higher for third. So because sometimes we jump into it with such like rebound energy, like we're so sad and so hurt, and the single mom or single man feel is real. Like you don't want to be alone in this world.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just important to do your own healing to make sure that you're not choosing for the wrong reasons, or maybe choosing somebody that's repeating those old behaviors and those
Right.
their own habits.
Yeah. Or somebody that's enabling you to avoid the hard truth, or enabling by being in the relationship with you. What it's not on them because they don't know that you're avoiding it, enabling you to not face those uncomfortable feelings. And I know I've done that in the past when I was younger, in my early 20s. Like there was a particular relationship that I'm thinking of, jumped into something else relatively soon afterwards. And I know looking back on it, I did that because I was avoiding how heartbroken I felt over the first one, and that I just didn't want to be alone, or I wanted to prove that I wasn't undesirable, I guess, or that I couldn't make it work with somebody else. Like I was just determined to make that happen. And you're kind of like, I should have stayed single a little bit longer. I should have dealt with those feelings. What would you say to someone that's having a hard time, maybe facing those really uncomfortable situations or uncomfortable feelings, and they need to sit in them and embrace it rather than run away or have the fear or the avoidance stuff? Like if someone's struggling with emotional healing right now, what would you say to them?
We just underutilize coaching and therapy. It is such an amazing resource, and people are afraid of it or think that it's going to be, I don't know, maybe they've had a bad experience. Then try somebody else if that healer is not the right person for you. But we underestimate how powerful working with somebody that can help us can really be. There's no shame in it, and it is life-changing.
Right.
So I highly recommend therapy or coaching.
For the life coaching, for what you're doing, do you combine a little bit of both? Is it some therapy, some life coaching, or is it strictly life coaching only? And if someone needs a therapist, you can refer out?
Yeah. I'm a certified life coach, so I do not have a license as a therapist, and I'm very intentional about that.
Sure.
So depending on how much trauma somebody is going through, I definitely recommend them to see a licensed therapist. If there's a lot of stuff, it's pretty easy for me to discern if it's within my scope or not, but I don't ever want to unintentionally hurt somebody more by like bringing them into their trauma and then not being skilled and trained enough to get them healed from their trauma. So I'd say I'm mostly coaching. And then I have many clients that have both.
That do both. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And you mentioned a couple of modalities earlier with like the Reiki and energetic wellness stuff. Could you tell us things that you use during your practice or during your sessions?
So I'm not actually certified as a Reiki practitioner. Okay. I seek Reiki. So
you use it for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I seek Reiki.
Yeah.
So I do breath work, Reiki, any sort of hard yes to any sort of energetic path that pops across my feed. So I'm really into myself getting healed. When I am a healed, more balanced human, energetically, emotionally, spiritually, then I can show up better for my clients, but really in what matters in my marriage and in my parenting. And so I firmly believe that the very best gift that you can give anybody that you love is the gift of a healed version of yourself. And so go for it, try it, do all the things, and be curious, find what thing actually fits for you.
Yeah. And how long have you been a coach?
3 years.
3 years. What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned about yourself over these first 3 years?
Oh man, I was really uptight. I was really, really uptight. I was a white knuckle gripping, like my drug of choice was control.
Okay.
If this, let me get this all taken care of. And I overanalyzed, overpressured, over scrutinized. And so I was miserable
Yeah.
because we don't really have control over anything.
No, at all.
I mean,
No.
I guess I can pick what time I wake up in the morning, or
Right,
eat
yeah,
for
you
lunch, but
you can control over yourself, right?
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
But
yeah.
once I started like releasing that and healing my nervous system and recognizing I didn't have to be all things for all people, I was able to not hold on to the control so much and then not have to be so uptight.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect. I still fall back into my own ways sometimes, but I think that's been my biggest gift.
And that's good too. And what are you hoping for your kids and your stepchildren as well, but your children in general, like if they are watching you go through all of these different changes and transformations and pivots and, mom changed her career and it's a big deal and she had not done anything like this before. Like what kind of lessons or legacy are you hoping that they'll catch on to by watching you go through all these changes?
I want them to know that they're not responsible for other people's feelings. I mean, they can't be mean to people, but they are responsible for their own life. And they have one big, beautiful life that they should live it authentically to themselves, regardless of if that makes me happy or not. We're not bound by other people's expectations. We get to really follow that path. But like my biological kids have said to me, thank you so much for getting along with dad. I don't fight with their dad. Right. I've healed all of that. We're not angry towards each other. There's just not a lot of resentment. And so that's a gift. I really encourage people who are going through divorce and co-parenting. This is where you heal yourself, because when you heal yourself, you can have a more balanced relationship with your ex-spouse. And I would just want my kids to know that nothing is really a failure. They get to pivot as much as they want in their life.
As you have gone through these transformations, are there any lessons you've learned from them? Because of my friends that have kids, they tell me all the time, like, I can't believe my 5-year-old is teaching me more than college, or I've learned a lesson. I've had an epiphany listening to him or her talk, and I've been in therapy for X amount of years. Like, is there anything that your children have said to you or a lesson that you've pulled after going through all these things that you're like, wow, that's going to stick with me forever? Yeah.
My stepson's biological mom died in 2018, and the way that they handled their grief when my dad died, I was like, I'm really learning from them on how they have been able to handle their grief and navigate life and their resiliency. It's just really beautiful to see how kids keep things in perspective and don't white knuckle grip it the way that
adults do. Yeah. No. Oh, that's really sweet. I'm glad that they, you don't ever want your child to go through something like that, but I'm sure it gives you and your husband a lot of joy to at least know that, wow, our kids they're strong, they're smart, they're kind, and they can handle things, and they can come out the other side and not completely lose themselves to one emotion or to one just event. And I know that that's really tough. And like you said, you want to control everything and you want to put your kids, I'm sure, in a bubble box and like never let them out, but you can't do that because you can't stop life from happening to them either. So, if you could leave maybe one message for any young women that maybe they just finished their divorce and they're still kind of holding on to the whole, I should have been this, or I should have done that, or I should have left sooner, or I should have tried to stop, maybe what if I had done this or that, maybe it wouldn't have failed or it wouldn't be all my fault. Women that might be like having that spiral conversation in their head right now, what would you want them to know or to hear from you?
Just to give yourself grace. There is no right path. And again, nobody wants to get divorced. No. Anybody that said divorce is the easy way out has never been through a divorce.
Oh my gosh.
So
no.
It's okay. You can rebuild your life. This does not have to be the end of your road. You get to heal and move on. Your kids are going to be okay.
Yeah.
That's probably what they need to know, is like, your kids are going to be okay. And you will too.
Yeah. The other day I was doing an interview and I was talking to the guest, and one of her pieces of advice to the listeners was just like, if you don't feel like you're belonging or you're feeling like you're in a rough patch, like you have to find your tribe, you find your support system and lean there. Like, don't do everything on your own. Asking for help is only going to make you better versus, you could go the long way around and possibly end up right back where you were when you started. So if you're not willing to just kind of let it be, it may not come out the way that you want it to. So I know that that's a really tough thing to do. So for every guest, I do have like 5 core questions that I ask. And at the end, we'll rapid fire a couple of them.
Alrighty.
Yeah. What do you want out of life? And have you found what you're looking for?
Oh, I'd love enlightenment, but no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a long way to go.
Transcendence. Yeah. Me too. Yeah. But enlightenment would be a good one. Are you and your family, do you guys practice any particular religion? I know you're doing all the energetic work, but does that match up spiritually for you as well?
Not as much as it did in the past.
Not as much.
Yeah. It changed a little bit.
Well, and that's okay too. You know, it's all part of the journey as you figure that out. Okay. How do you define purpose, and what does living in your purpose look like to you?
I think purpose is that deep knowing, that intuition that we talked about in the beginning of where do you want to go in this life and how do you want to get there? And then you have to have daily check-ins. Is this in alignment and leading me closer to my purpose and my goals, or is it causing a detour?
Yeah. Okay. How do you define success, and what does success look like to you?
I think success is a moving target based on what chapter you are in your life and what you're trying to achieve. Some people look at that as like a very tangible thing, like money or straight A's. I think success is, again, living in alignment and being able to wake up each day and go, gosh, I actually love my life.
Right.
And I'm proud of all of the things, the good and the bad.
Yeah. And everything you've done to get to where you are today. Yeah. I love that. You did talk a little bit about wanting to shake 24-year-old Molly. So if you could go back in time and give yourself advice, what would you say to her?
Well, that's super deep and could be a whole nother podcast, but I would like her to realize her worth, and that the timeline of being 24 and not engaged and not married is not behind. You know, that you're allowed to make your own decisions. You're allowed to create your own timeline. And really, there's no rules. Anything that you think has to happen is like kind of made up.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want to hurt anybody, but other than that, you get to live your life the way that you want. And she did. That 24-year-old girl didn't know that.
I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned from starting this podcast is that I used to work for the federal government. So one of their favorite things to say is stay in your lane. Like you work for this agency does this thing, you work on this team, kind of whatever. And everything's so siloed all the time. So you get used to just that one thing, that one identity, and stepping out of that lane sometimes causes rifts. And so the reality of life, though, is that you can switch lanes. You can pivot, you can transition, go learn something new. You can get a certificate. You can completely change careers. You can start over as many times as you want. That's not improbable, or it's not out of reach as much as I used to think it was. And so that's what's been really healing for me through this process, is that like being okay swerving.
Yeah.
Like I'm like,
and you can make hard right turn.
Left turn or U-turn. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I want a U-turn.
You don't want to go back.
And people have asked me before on the show, you know, like if you could go back to, and I've asked older guests, you know, if you could go back to any decade of your life, which decade would you choose? And the vast majority of them actually pick like their 50s or their 60s. They don't ever pick their teenage years or their days, or, you know, even 30s again, which I always found really interesting, because I'm like, I feel like this should be the prime of your life. This should be like you're young, you're healthy, you have kids, you're enjoying them being raised and growing up and all that kind of thing. But yeah, they always pick like, no, I was financially more stable. My kids were grown. They were okay. They were starting their own families. Like my husband and I, or my wife and I, we were reconnecting at that point because we were back to just us, and like we got to do things that we used to always want to do without the kids. It became themselves in a new way again. They're like, so that was great, and my health wasn't terrible yet.
Well, that's a beautiful thought, that our best days are still ahead of us, right?
Right. And so that's one of those where I'm slowly letting go of all those feelings that like starting over in your 30s really it's not as bad as you think it'll be, or it's not a disappointment like you thought.
And what is starting over? You're not starting over.
Yeah.
Blossoming.
You're growing into something new. Yeah. Okay. So the main, like we've kind of discussed, the main topic really on the show is for people that are feeling lost and I try and connect them with people that are found or could help them become found. So people like you, if someone is listening and they're feeling lost right now or unsure of who they are or what comes next, what would you say to them?
Honestly, I tell them to just continue to seek help, reach out, find your network. Like you mentioned, you know, you can find me and reach out to me. I'd love to engage with anybody on Instagram DMs, or you can contact me on my website. But finding like-minded people, which is sometimes easier said than done. But I find the more you're willing to be vulnerable and the more you're willing to say, oh my gosh, I'm dealing with this, you find people who are like, oh, me too. But we try so hard to stay in this perfectionism, stoic place, or at least I did.
Oh, I still struggle with it.
That it's hard then to let anybody in. And then we're just calling in superficial relationships. And then we're disappointed that we have superficial relationships. So you have to be the one that goes first. You're going to have to be the one that lays it all out there and hopefully be the bridge for other people to form that connection with you too.
Yeah. Well, and leads back into your authenticity comment as well. How are you going to create a life for your future self if you're not honest with how you're feeling now, or you're leaning into that authentic feeling? And even if it's an uncomfortable one, admitting that I'm not in a great place right now. I'm really in it. This is a roller coaster of my life. And I know that this show has felt that way at different times too, because when I first started it, the first couple episodes are not awesome to listen to. They're really heartbreaking, you know, and it's grown a lot since then, of course. But when I go back and listen to it, some of them I'm like, yeah, Amanda, I'm so proud of you for saying that finally. Or, wow, that's really insightful. I can't believe I was full of wisdom that day. And then other days I'm like, oh man, I wish I could hug her. She needed help, kind of a thing. So I know that that's very important to be open about your journey.
And the reality is, let's just call it out. Everybody is struggling. Everybody is struggling. Everybody has their own inner dialogue, their self-doubt, their own story, their own traumas. There's not a human on this earth. You're not human if you aren't struggling in some capacity. So the more that we can understand that, the more we can forgive ourselves a little bit and not think that we're more behind. You're not behind. There's no rules. There's no finish line. It just doesn't exist. I've learned that the most in my coaching and being in the rooms with people at retreats. Everybody has their own version and it looks a little different, but everybody is struggling in some capacity.
Yeah. It sucks to hear that, to know that people are in pain like that, but it's reaffirming that, okay, what I'm feeling is actually unfortunate, but it's normal. And I'm going to get through it the same way this other person right next to me got through it too. Well, Molly, this has been so much fun. I've had such a great time chatting with you, and I'm honored and grateful that you would come all the way down here to hang out with me today. So I appreciate it. I hope you got a lot out of it as well. Please let everybody know if they want to work with you, how can they find you or connect with any of the content or the writing that you're putting out there.
You can go to my website, which is molly.rubesh, RUBESH.com, or you can find me on Instagram, Molly_Rubesh, and you can find the Modern Marriage Blueprint course on my website as well.
Excellent. Okay, everybody, I will make sure to put all of Molly's information into the show notes and the description box for this episode. And you can hit us up there on Instagram. We'll be on YouTube and TikTok as well. Everything is under Podcast for the Lost. And if you ever have any questions or you want to participate in the Wanderer Wisdom Wednesday episodes where I do listener Q&A, please email me, hello@podcastforthelost.com. And we'll catch you next week. And remember, wanderers are always welcome.